It was a cold and rainy evening when the Johnson family moved into their new home. The house was an old, isolated villa, surrounded by dense woods. It was far away from any other residence and seemed to have a dark history. The Johnsons were excited about the change, hoping to start a new life in a peaceful place. On the evening of their arrival, the family gathered around the fireplace. As the wind howled outside and rain pounded against the windows, the father, David, shared with them the story of the ancient villa. It's said that this house was built in the 19th century by a man named Samuel Hartman, David said. Samuel was a professional clown, famous for his terrifying performances during the traveling circus where he worked. But the creepiest part is that at the end of his life, he went mad and mysteriously disappeared. The children, Emily and Ethan, were fascinated by the story and decided to explore the house. As they roamed through dusty hallways, Emily found an old box filled with photographs. They were pictures of Samuel Hartman, dressed as a clown and surrounded by children who appeared terrified. The Johnson family felt a shiver down their spines. In the weeks that followed, strange events began to occur. The family heard strange noises at night, like the sound of echoing footsteps in the hallways. Objects would disappear and reappear in different places, and lights would suddenly go out. Emily and Ethan started to see unsettling shadows moving in the darkness, and at times, it seemed like someone was watching them. But their parents always reassured them, attributing everything to fantasies and fear. One day, while Emily was alone in her bedroom, she saw a reflection in the antique mirror on her vanity. She turned around abruptly and saw Samuel Hartman, the clown, reflected in the mirrors, with a wicked smile on his face. She screamed and ran out of the room, but when her parents entered, there was no sign of Samuel. The Johnson family decided to investigate Samuel Hartman's story. They discovered that after his disappearance, his reputation as an evil clown grew, and he became an urban legend. It was said that he had made a pact with the devil to gain supernatural powers and was destined to haunt anyone who dared to enter his house. The family sought help from paranormal experts and attempted to cleanse the house with rituals and prayers, but nothing seemed to work. Samuel Hartman continued to manifest, becoming increasingly menacing. One night, while they were gathered in the main room, the doors slammed shut and the windows shattered. Samuel Hartman appeared before them, his clownish smile twisted and his gaze mad. Emily and Ethan were paralyzed with fear while David desperately tried to protect his family. Samuel Hartman began whispering incomprehensible words and making the air vibrate around them. Then, with a sudden movement, he hurled a heavy piece of furniture out of the window. The Johnson family threw themselves to the floor to escape the danger. The clown continued to torment them, destroying the house and sowing terror. The Johnson family lived in a constant state of fear and couldn't find a way to stop Samuel Hartman. One night, while they were hiding in the attic, Samuel Hartman materialized in front of them. He held a sharp knife and his face was a mask of madness. "It's time to play, kids," he said with a sinister laugh. David, Emily, and Ethan desperately tried to escape, but Samuel Hartman pursued them through the dark corridors of the house. Emily stumbled and fell to the ground as the clown approached menacingly. David threw himself at Samuel Hartman in an attempt to protect his children, but the clown was too strong and insane. With a swift motion, he stabbed him in the chest. David fell to the ground, lifeless. Emily and Ethan, frightened and crying, finally managed to reach the outside of the house. As they fled through the woods, they heard Samuel Hartman's malevolent laughter close behind them. Emily and Ethan ran until they reached a deserted road, where they finally found help. They called the police and recounted the horror they had experienced in the house. The officers found David Johnson's lifeless body and began to investigate the strange story. But when they returned to the villa, there was no sign of Samuel Hartman. It was as if the murderous clown had vanished into thin air. The Johnson family was placed in psychiatric care due to the trauma they had endured. Despite the police investigation and media coverage, Samuel Hartman was never found. The killer clown remained an unsolved mystery, a tale of terror that would continue to haunt anyone who dared to approach the abandoned villa in the woods. And as Emily and Ethan tried to pick up the pieces of their lives, they knew that the clown could return at any time, ready to inflict his horror on anyone who crossed his path. It was the heart of summer when three friends, Alex, Sarah, and Mark, decided to spend a weekend at Pinecrest Campground. The campground was located in a remote forest, surrounded by ancient trees and a crystal-clear lake. It was a tranquil and idyllic place, perfect for escaping the hustle and bustle of city life. Alex was an avid adventurer, Sarah an enthusiastic photographer, and Mark a survival expert. They had been close friends for years, and camping seemed like the perfect opportunity to share an outdoor adventure. They loaded their gear into Alex's SUV and headed to Pinecrest Campground with excitement. When they arrived at the campground, they were awestruck by its beauty. Sunlight filtered through the leaves of the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the trail that led to their campsite. They decided to set up their campsite near the lake so they could enjoy the spectacular view. After pitching their tents and lighting a fire, Alex pulled out the campground map and began planning activities for the weekend. Sarah was eager to capture photos of the surrounding nature, while Mark wanted to go hiking and teach them some survival techniques. The evening passed peacefully, filled with laughter and stories around the campfire. The following morning, Sarah woke up early to capture the morning light with her camera. As she walked along the lake's shore, she noticed something strange. There were peculiar carvings on the tree trunks, forming a series of concentric circles. Curious, Sarah photographed the carvings and returned to the campsite to show them to Alex and Mark. The two friends were perplexed but thought it might be a prank by other campers. During the day, while they were hiking, they noticed more mysterious carvings on the trees along the trail. It was clear that someone was trying to communicate something, but none of them knew what these markings meant. On the second night, while sitting around the campfire, Sarah mentioned that she wanted to take a nighttime walk to capture some photos of the moonlit forest. Alex and Mark were concerned, but Sarah reassured them and promised to return soon. However, after several hours, Sarah did not return to the camp. Alex and Mark became alarmed and started searching for her. They called out her name into the dark night but received no response. Their anxiety grew as they continued their fruitless search. They had no idea what had happened to Sarah and began to fear the worst. The night turned into morning, and the search for Sarah continued relentlessly. Alex and Mark checked the lake, the trail, and the surrounding forest, but there was no trace of their friend. They were forced to call local authorities to report Sarah's disappearance. The police arrived at Pinecrest Campground and began investigating the disappearance. They asked Alex and Mark to recount all the details of the past 48 hours. When they showed the officers the photos of the mysterious carvings on the trees, the officers seemed unsettled. "These markings may be connected to an old local legend," one of the officers said. "It is said that in the past, a group of Native Americans lived here and left markings to protect the area from dark entities." The following night, Alex and Mark stayed awake in their tent, anxiously waiting for news of Sarah's search. But something sinister began to happen. They heard strange noises coming from the forest, like whispers and faint laughter. Then suddenly the carvings on the trees began to glow with a dim and eerie light. Alex and Mark approached to get a better look and were stunned. The concentric circles were coming to life, taking on a humanoid shape. Moments later, a spectral figure appeared before them. It was a woman dressed in a flowing white gown that seemed to float in the air. Her face was pale and expressionless, and her eyes were empty like black holes. The figure approached them and spoke with a mournful voice. "You have disturbed the peace of this place. Now you must face the consequences." Alex and Mark tried to flee, but they were trapped inside the tent as the spectral figure enveloped them with her gown. They slowly disappeared, as if being sucked into another world. Meanwhile, the search for Sarah had yielded no results. Pinecrest Campground had become a cursed place, with a reputation for disappearance and horror that had driven visitors away. Many years later, a group of adventurous campers decided to explore Pinecrest Campground, disregarding the legends and tales of horror. But as they entered the campground, they were unsettled by the oppressive silence and the feeling of being watched. The mysterious carvings on the trees were still there, but they appeared older and weathered. As night fell, the group of campers lit a fire and began to tell scary stories around it. However, as the dancing flames cast eerie shadows, they started to hear noises coming from the surrounding forest. First, unsettling whispers, then wicked laughter, and finally the spectral figure appeared before them. The figure still wore the white gown and had the same expressionless face. She turned her empty gaze toward the campers and said, "You have disturbed the peace of this place. Now you must face the consequences." Terrified, the campers tried to flee, but the spectral figure enveloped them with her gown. They vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only the fading crackle of the dying fire. Pinecrest Campground became known as the Camp of Horrors, a place where no camper had ever returned safely. Legends of the spectral figure and the mysterious carvings continued to circulate, keeping its reputation as a cursed location alive. No one dared to venture into the depths of the forest anymore, and the campground was eventually abandoned. Ancient trees surrounded it, hiding the dark secrets and lost souls that still roamed among the trees. As time passed, the tales of horror from Pinecrest Campground became distant memories, forgotten by most people. But anyone who had heard those stories knew that the campground was a place to be avoided at all costs, a place where the boundary between the world of the living and the dead blurred, and horror could strike at any moment.